The domed chamber of the Galactic Federation Council hummed with energy, its curved walls displaying star maps and tactical projections. Representatives from 100 species floated or perched in their designated sectors, their murmurs creating a dissonant chorus of clicks, growls, and synthesized speech. High Chancellor Vex'lor of the Zapirian Dominion raised his four-fingered hand, and the chamber fell silent. "Today we decide the fate of the Orion Arm," Vex'lor announced, his voice echoing through the translator implants. His chitinous plates gleamed under the artificial light as he gestured toward the central hologram. The image shifted to show the approaching rift swarm, a writhing mass of bioships stretching across 3 star systems. "The swarm consumes all in its path. We must unite our fleets." Admiral Krell of the Vorak hegemony clicked his mandibles in agreement. His armored carapace scraped against the podium as he leaned forward. "The hegemony pledges 3 battle groups. The Zapirians offer 5. Even the fragile Celestrians contribute their orbital platforms." The hologram zoomed in on a small blue planet at the edge of the projected war zone. "But this is what concerns me." Earth's defenses appeared in the display. A handful of outdated cruisers, a smattering of missile platforms. The chamber erupted in derisive chirps and hisses. A Scythian delegate pulsed with amusement, his bioluminescent patterns flashing crimson. "You cannot seriously propose including them. Look at their primitive vessels. Their strongest warship would struggle against a Vorak scout craft." Vex'lor tapped a control panel, and the hologram shifted to show human history. Nuclear fireballs over ancient cities, crude kinetic weapons punching through armored vehicles. "They are violent, yes, but undisciplined. The swarm will tear through their systems within hours." Krell's antennae twitched as he studied the data. Their last interstellar conflict was fought with projectile weapons and chemical explosives. They only discovered warp theory 2 generations ago. He turned to the assembled delegates. "I move we exclude Earth from the war compact. Their inclusion would be a liability." A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Celestrian representative floated higher on its anti-grav disk, its crystalline body refracting light. "They are children playing with fire. The swarm will crush them regardless. Why waste resources protecting their backward colonies?" From the observation gallery, a lone human diplomat stood. Ambassador Cho's hands trembled slightly as she activated her translator. "Earth Defense Command has analyzed the swarm's patterns. Our scientists believe..." Laughter cut her off. A reptilian Crixian delegate slapped its tail against the floor. "Your scientists? The ones who still debate climate patterns on their own planet?" More laughter. Cho's face flushed, but she kept her voice steady. "We may not have your technology, but we have something you lack." She tapped her temple. "Ingenuity. When faced with extinction humans..." "Enough." Vex'lor's voice cracked like a whip. "The vote is called. All in favor of excluding Earth from the war compact." A sea of glowing affirmatives lit up the chamber. The holographic tally showed Fey approval. The Chancellor didn't bother calling for opposing votes. "Earth will remain neutral territory. May the stars have mercy on them when the swarm arrives." As Cho gathered her datapads, Krell approached. His faceted eyes gleamed with something almost like pity. "Return home, little human. Spend your final days with your kind. The galaxy has no place for weaklings in this war." Outside the council chambers, the stars burned cold and distant. Cho's shuttle waited, dwarfed by the sleek warships of a dozen advanced species. She clenched her fists as the airlocks sealed behind her. The pilot, a grizzled Marine sergeant, glanced back. "They said no, didn't they?" Cho sank into her seat. "Worse, they're writing us off." The shuttle's engines whined to life, pushing them away from the glittering hub of galactic power. Below, Zenthar Prime's megacities glowed like fireflies, untouchable, unconcerned. The sergeant chuckled darkly as he plotted the course home. "Funny. Every time someone underestimates us, they end up eating those words." He punched the thrusters, and the stars blurred into streaks, usually along with a nuke or two. The archives of the Elders lay buried beneath the cracked surface of Zenthar, a dead world orbiting a dying star. Admiral Krell's boots crunched on ancient dust as he descended the spiral ramp, his Vorak eyes adjusting to the dim blue glow of preservation fields. The air smelled of ozone and something older, the scent of forgotten knowledge. "You should not be here," a voice whispered from the walls. It came from everywhere and nowhere, the words forming directly in Krell's auditory receptors. "This knowledge burns those who touch it." Krell bared his serrated teeth. "Show yourself, caretaker." The dust swirled, coalescing into a humanoid shape with too many joints. Scholar Yithra, last of the Archive's AI guardians, materialized before him. Its face was smooth and blank, but the voice carried millennia of weariness. "Why does the Federation seek what it has already deemed forbidden?" Krell's tail twitched. He hated dealing with machines that thought they were alive. "The Rift Swarm comes. We need every advantage." Yithra tilted its head. "And you think the answers lie with them? The ones you dismissed so easily?" A hologram flickered to life between them. Earth, blue and green, spinning peacefully. Krell snorted. "Humans. We analyzed their capabilities. Primitive railguns, chemical propulsion. Their greatest wars were fought with sticks and radiation." The hologram shifted. Now it showed Earth again, but different. Cities burning, mushroom clouds blooming across continents. "Sticks and radiation," Yithra repeated. "Yet they survived this. Not one nuclear winter, not 10, 17 separate extinction level events in their recorded history." Krell's crest flattened against his skull. "Impossible. No species rebounds from that." "Your scans showed their current technology," Yithra said. The hologram changed again. Human ships, small but numerous, swarming like insects. "But you never asked how they advanced so quickly after each collapse." Krell's claws tapped against his datapad. "Genetic resilience, sheer luck." Yithra's laugh was the sound of grinding stone. "They call it war economy. When backed into extinction's edge, their minds change, priorities shift. Entire generations dedicate themselves to survival through destruction." The hologram zoomed in on a human face. Gaunt, determined, holding a weapon cobbled together from scrap. "This is their true nature, not the peaceful traitors you see now." Krell felt the first prickle of unease crawl up his spine. "You're saying they've been holding back?" The AI gestured, and the archives trembled. Dust fell from towering shelves of crystal data cores. "The Zenthari Collective warned us before they vanished. The Draxian Hive carved it into their tomb worlds." A single core floated forward, cracked and blackened. Even the swarm left records about them, from when they last met millennia ago. Krell reached out, but Yithra snatched the core away. "Touch this, and you burn with the knowledge. The humans have a saying, 'Speak of the devil, and he shall appear.' They named their greatest wars after gods of destruction. They worship the concept of annihilation." "That is just primitive mythology," Krell snapped. Yithra's form flickered. "Is it? Then explain Project Prometheus." Krell froze. "That is classified Federation intelligence." The AI leaned closer. "No, it is what the humans built before joining your precious Federation, buried deep beneath their moon, a failsafe." The hologram showed a skeletal structure, vast, ominous, humming with barely contained energy. "They do not break, they adapt, and when cornered, the image shifted to a star system consumed by fire." "They burn everything." Krell's comlink buzzed. It was High Chancellor Vex'lor. "Admiral, the swarm's advance fleet has entered the Sol system. The humans are engaging." Yithra dissolved into dust, its final words hanging in the dead air. "Now you will see. Now the galaxy will remember why even the swarm fears them." The air in the Mars shipyards tasted like ozone and sweat. Captain Ryan Blake strode through the crowded docking bay, his boots clanging against the metal grates. Around him, hundreds of engineers in grease, Stained jumpsuits scrambled over the skeletal frame of the USN Defiance. The battleship's hull was a patchwork of old armor plating and new, untested systems, scars from past battles layered with fresh upgrades. Blake's comm buzzed. He tapped his earpiece. "Talk to me. Captain, you're needed in Psyche now." Dr. Lisa Hayes' voice was tight. He didn't waste time asking why. The corridors of the shipyard were a maze of flickering lights and exposed wiring, but Blake knew every turn. Had walked them 1,000 times since Earth Command had quietly reassigned him here 6 months ago. Retrofitting, they'd called it, just in case. The Command Information Center was a bubble of controlled chaos. Screens flickered with data streams, and a dozen officers hunched over terminals, their faces lit by the glow. Hayes stood at the central holotable, her fingers dancing through a projection of the Sol system. Red markers pulsed near Pluto. Blake didn't need an explanation. Had seen those markers before, in every nightmare since the first swarm scout had slipped past the outer defenses. "They're coming," Hayes said quietly, "faster than we predicted." A young pilot, Jake Morrison, barely out of the academy, swallowed hard. "How many?" Hayes zoomed the projection. The red markers multiplied, spreading like a virus. "Enough!" Blake's jaw tightened. Had known this was coming. The Federation's refusal to include Earth in their war plans hadn't been a surprise. The Zapirians had always looked down on humanity, and the Vorak. They'd laughed outright when Earth's diplomats had suggested joint exercises, too slow, too fragile. But this was different. "Fleet Command's last transmission just came through," Hayes said. She tapped a control, and a grainy hologram of Admiral Graves flickered to life. The man looked exhausted. "Blake," Graves said, his voice crackling with static. "The Federation's pulling back. They won't engage the swarm in our system. We're on our own." A murmur rippled through the CIC. Morrison's hands clenched into fists. Blake didn't react. Had expected this too. Hayes shut off the transmission. "They're leaving us to die." "No," Blake said. He turned to the crew, his voice low but carrying. "They're leaving us to fight." Silence, then Morrison straightened. "With what? Half our fleet's still in dry dock. The Defiance isn't even—" "It's ready enough," Blake cut in. He nodded to Hayes. "Tell them." Hayes took a breath. Then she entered a command. The holotable's projection shifted, zooming in on the Defiance's schematics. Sections of the ship lit up, sections that shouldn't exist. Morrison's eyes widened. "What the hell is that?" "Project Prometheus," Blake said. "Earth's last resort." Hayes tapped another key. The schematics peeled back, revealing the truth. Hidden compartments lined with blackened, pulsating cores. Antimatter containment chambers. Forbidden tech, scavenged from the ruins of the Third World War and perfected in secret. Morrison paled. "You're joking." Blake's smile was razor thin. "We've been preparing for this since the day the Federation turned us away." He turned to the crew, his voice hardening. "They think we're weak. They think we'll break. But humanity's been fighting extinction since we crawled out of the mud, and we've always found a way to burn our enemies to the ground." The crew exchanged glances. Then one by one, they nodded. Hayes folded her arms. "So what's the plan, Captain?" Blake looked back at the holotable, at the swarm of red markers creeping closer. "We show them why you don't back humans into a corner." The first Rift swarm bioships emerged from the quantum tunnels like pus from a wound. Thousands of them, their chitinous hulls glistening with organic armor, spilled into the Sol system in a wave of biological horror. The Federation observation drones hovering near Pluto transmitted the images back to Zenthar Prime, along with the laughter of the council members. Captain Blake watched the tactical display on the Defiance's bridge. Red icons bloomed across the screen like a bloodstain spreading. "All stations, battle readiness," he said, his voice calm, too calm. Dr. Hayes gripped her console until her knuckles turned white. Young Jake Morrison swallowed hard in his pilot's seat. The first human patrol, 3 outdated frigates, engaged near Jupiter. Their railguns flashed in the dark. The swarm ships absorbed the rounds like rain on stone. Then they returned fire. Organic plasma bolts ripped through the lead frigate's hull. The USN Valiant came apart in a silent explosion, her crew reduced to atoms before they could scream. The other 2 ships tried to retreat. The swarm surrounded them. Blake's fist clenched, helm full burn toward the engagement zone. "Sir, Command ordered us to hold position at Mars." "I don't care. Move." The Defiance surged forward, her retrofitted engines whining under the strain. On the main screen, the 2nd frigate died. The 3rd, the USN Dauntless, managed to launch a full missile spread before a swarm harvester ship speared her with a biocannon. The warheads detonated against the swarm vessel's hide. It shuddered, then kept coming. Federation observers on Zenthar Prime watched the feed. High Chancellor Vex'lor's tentacles twitched in amusement. As predicted, their weapons are toys. Admiral Krell didn't laugh. He stared at the screen, his Vorak eyes unblinking. Something in the way the human ships died, the way they fought to the last, it bothered him. Near Saturn, the main Earth defense fleet scrambled to form a battle line. 200 ships against 20,000 swarm vessels. The math was ugly. The swarm hit them like a tsunami. Plasma washed over human destroyers, melting armor like wax. Boarding pods, living, squirming things, burrowed into hulls. Crews fought in the corridors with sidearms and knives as their ships were eaten alive from within. Blake's calm crackled. This is Admiral Cole on the USN Titan were. Static. Then a wet, tearing sound. The Titan's icon winked out. Jake's hands shook on the controls. "They're dying out there, Captain, all of them." Blake didn't answer. He watched the numbers on his screen. 70% of Earth's fleet gone in 13 minutes. The swarm hadn't lost a single capital ship on Zenthar Prime. The council chamber erupted in debate. "We should recall our observers," a Zapirian delegate hissed. "There's nothing to learn here." Krell stood abruptly. "Wait." On the screen, a single human cruiser, the USN Retribution, rammed a swarm harvester at full speed. The explosion took out 6 nearby bioships. For the first time, the swarm hesitated. Then they hit Earth's orbital defenses. The battle stations lasted 17 minutes, the lunar batteries 22. The last transmission from the USN Guardian over Mars was a screaming gunner firing her last round point, blank into a swarm pod. Then silence. Blake finally turned to Dr. Hayes. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. "Time?" he asked. She checked her readout. "Project Prometheus is at 98%. 2 more minutes." Outside, the swarm fleet turned toward Mars. Toward them, Jake let out a shaky breath. "They're coming." Blake leaned forward in his chair. "Let them." On Zenthar Prime, the laughter had stopped. The council watched in silence as the last human ships were swallowed by the swarm. Krell's claws dug into his chair. He kept staring at the feed, waiting. Something was wrong. The humans hadn't run. They hadn't begged for help. Dead died standing. And that, he realized with dawning horror, was exactly what they'd wanted the swarm to see. The bridge of the USN Defiance shook as another swarm missile detonated against its shields. Warning lights painted the crew in crimson. Captain Blake gripped his command chair, knuckles white. On the main screen, the swarm fleet advanced, endless waves of chitinous horrors blotting out the stars. Shields at Fey Lieutenant Chen reported, voice tight, "The Beijing just went dark. We're the last capital ship standing." Dr. Hayes stumbled onto the bridge, her lab coat singed at the edges. "Captain, we need to activate it now." Blake didn't turn. He watched the tactical display, dozens of human ships reduced to burning wreckage. The Federation observers had withdrawn to a safe distance, Recording Earth's demise like spectators at a gladiator pit, sir. Jake Morrison's voice crackled over the comms. His fighter squadron danced through the swarm's tendrils, buying seconds. We can't hold much longer, Blake exhaled. The weight of centuries pressed down on him. He remembered the classified briefing, Project Prometheus, buried deep beneath Geneva, a weapon so terrible even Earth's own governments had voted to dismantle it. Dr. Hayes, Blake said quietly, do it. The scientist didn't hesitate. Her fingers flew across the command console, inputting codes known to only 3 living humans. Deep in the Defiance's core, ancient systems whirred to life. The ship groaned, metal screamed as hidden compartments split open along its spine. The crew gasped as the deck plates vibrated beneath them, not from enemy fire, but from something awakening inside their own vessel. "Report," Blake demanded. Hayes's eyes reflected the pulsing red glow now emanating from the ship's exposed skeleton. "Primary cores online. Antimatter containment stable for now." On the view screen, the swarm hesitated. Their organic sensors detected the change. The sudden, terrifying spike in energy readings from the lone human ship. Blake opened a fleet-wide channel, his voice carried across the void, calm as an executioner's blade. "All remaining vessels, fall back to Mars perimeter. Full retreat." A chorus of protests erupted. "Captain, we won't abandon." "That is an order," Blake snapped. Then, softer, "Trust me." The human ships disengaged, limping toward the red planet. The swarm surged forward, sensing weakness. Inside the Defiance, Hayes watched the countdown. 60 seconds to ignition. Blake straightened his uniform. "Morrison, take your squadron and go." The young pilot's voice broke. "Not without you, sir." "You have your orders, Lieutenant." Blake cut the transmission before Morrison could reply. The swarm closed in. Their bio-cannons charged, preparing to rip the Defiance apart. 30 seconds, Hayes whispered. Blake activated the ship's external speakers. He didn't know if the swarm could understand him. He didn't care. "You wanted to see what humanity's made of?" He smiled as the first swarm tendrils scraped against the hull. "Here is your front row seat." Deep within the ship, 12 blackened cylinders pulsed brighter. The Defiance's computers screamed warnings. "Containment failure imminent." Hayes gripped Blake's arm. "It has been an honor, Captain." The last thing the swarm saw was the Defiance's hull splitting apart, revealing the sun-bright fury within. Then the universe turned white. A chain reaction tore through the swarm fleet. Bioships vaporized as the antimatter shockwave expanded. The Federation observers' sensors overloaded, their screens showing only static where thousands of vessels had been. On Mars, Jake Morrison watched the explosion through tear-filled eyes. The light painted the planet's surface in eerie daylight. Then, impossibly, a signal cut through the interference. Blake's voice, weak but unmistakable, echoed across every human frequency. "Did we get them?" The bridge crew erupted in disbelieving laughter. Hayes sagged against her console. The Defiance was gone, but its skeleton remained, a scorched frame drifting amid the swarm's ashes, and at its heart, shielded by the last functioning armor plate. Blake coughed blood and grinned at the stars. The bridge of the USN Defiance fell silent as Captain Blake activated the open broadcast. His hands hovered over the console for just a second, one heartbeat of hesitation before committing to what came next. The scars on his face stood out in the dim emergency lighting, pale lines against skin that hadn't seen sunlight in months. "All channels," he said, voice rough. "Full spectrum. Let the whole damn galaxy hear this." Dr. Hayes swallowed hard but didn't argue. Jake Morrison tightened his grip on the pilot's yoke, knuckles white. Outside the viewport, the remains of Earth's fleet burned. The rift swarms bio. Ships pulsed like cancerous stars, their organic hulls splitting open to vomit more fighters into the void. The comms officer nodded. "Live in 3-2. Blake didn't wait for the count to finish. He leaned forward, and for the first time in centuries, humanity spoke to the galaxy not as petitioners, but as predators. You wanted a show. His voice crackled across every frequency, from the Federation's observation posts to the swarm's chittering hive. Mind, here it is. Somewhere in the darkness, High Chancellor Vex'lor froze mid-sentence. Admiral Krell's drink slipped from his grasp, shattering on the polished floor of the Federation command ship. Blake's image flickered across 1,000 screens, a human face, unenhanced by biotech or genetic perfection. Just flesh, just bone, just fury. You think we're weak because we bled on our own world, because we fought each other before we reached the stars. A cold smile twisted his lips. You're right, we did, and that's why you should be terrified. On the Defiance's tactical display, the swarm's vanguard shifted, their formations tightening as if they could physically recoil from the words. Every war we survived made us sharper. Every extinction we narrowly avoided forged us harder. Blake's hand slammed down on the armrest. The Zapirians evolved in peaceful oceans. The Vorak hatched in communal nests. But humanity... He leaned closer, the camera catching the fire in his eyes. We crawled out of the dirt fighting saber, tooths and starvation. We invented genocide before we invented plumbing. A shudder ran through the ship as something in the swarm's fleet reacted. A ripple of unease transmitted through their psychic link. You banned us from your war games because our ships were too small, our weapons too primitive. Blake snorted. We let you see what we wanted you to see. But now, behind him, the Defiance's main battery hummed to life, the sound vibrating through the hull like a waking beast. Now you get the truth. We don't fight fair. We don't fight clean, and when backed into a corner, the ship's klaxons began to wail as power spiked to critical levels. We don't fight to win, we fight to erase. The transmission cut just as the first antimatter warheads detonated, a chain reaction of stolen elder tech and human spite, igniting the void. Somewhere in the Federation's observation deck, Admiral Krell found his voice. Oh gods, he whispered, they weren't hiding their weakness. On the view screen, the swarm's fleet burned. They were hiding their teeth. The Defiance shuddered as another swarm bio. Ship latched onto its hull, acidic tendrils eating through reinforced plating. Alarms screamed through the corridors. Captain Blake gripped his command chair, knuckles white. On the main screen, the swarm fleet stretched endlessly, a living tide of chitin and pulsating flesh. Status report, Blake barked. Portside armor at face, sir, Lieutenant Chen called out, her voice tight. They're targeting the engines. Another hit like that and noted. Blake cut her off. His eyes flicked to the tactical display. The rest of Earth's fleet was scattered, outnumbered 20-1. The Beijing had just gone dark, its signal vanishing in a burst of static. The Geneva listed sideways, spewing atmosphere. Then Dr. Hayes' voice crackled over the comm. Captain, Prometheus is online. A slow grin spread across Blake's face. About damn time. He punched the ship, wide channel. All hands brace for ignition. Deep in the Defiance's core, the forbidden weapon hummed to life. The ship's spine split open, armored plates retracting to reveal 3 blackened cylinders. They pulsed with an eerie blue glow, like captured lightning. Target the swarm command vessel, Blake ordered. Let's see how they like our hospitality. The targeting computer chimed, lock confirmed, fire. The Defiance bucked as the first Prometheus missile launched. It streaked across the void, a sliver of death. The swarm didn't evade. They didn't understand. The impact was silent at first, a brilliant white flash. Then the shockwave hit. The command bioship disintegrated, its organic armor vaporizing in an instant. The explosion rippled outward, consuming nearby vessels in a chain reaction. Swarm ships burst like overripe fruit, their bioluminescent innards spraying across the black. On the bridge, the crew stared in stunned silence. Sir, Chen whispered. We just wiped out half their vanguard. Blake didn't smile. Reload. Across the battlefield, the remaining human ships rallied. The Geneva's guns roared back to life, punching holes through a swarm carrier. The Mumbai launched a full spread of torpedoes, each one finding its mark. Then the swarm did something unexpected. They hesitated. Admiral Krell's voice crackled over the Federation comms, disbelief thick in his translator's monotone. "Captain Blake, what is that weapon?" Blake leaned forward, his face lit by the dying glow of swarm wreckage, an old human tradition. When we're outnumbered, we cheat. Another volley launched. Another swarm formation died screaming. The tide had turned. The Defiance surged forward, its guns blazing. Behind it, what remained of Earth's fleet followed, battered, bleeding, but unbroken. Blake opened a channel to the swarm. No translation, no diplomacy, just 3 words, spat like bullets: "Come and die." The last swarm bioship ruptured in a silent explosion, its organic hull splitting apart like rotten fruit. The Defiance hung in the debris field, her armor scorched black, her engines sputtering, but intact. Across the bridge, Captain Blake wiped blood from his brow and grinned. "Status report," he growled. Dr. Hayes' fingers flew over her console. "Swarm Vanguard eliminated. Antimatter reserves at Faye. Mars shipyards report they can have 6 more Prometheus. Class warheads ready in 48 hours. Jake Morrison slumped in his pilot's chair, his flight suit drenched in sweat. "They'll be back with twice as many next time." Blake turned to the main screen, where the Federation observation fleet hovered at the edge of the system. Their ships gleamed, untouched. "Oh, they'll be back," he said. "But so will we." A comm alert chimed. The Federation emblem flashed, a request for open channel. Blake exchanged glances with Hayes. "Put them through." High Chancellor Vex'lor's scaled face appeared. His frills flattened in what humans had learned was Zapirian shame. "Captain Blake, the Federation Council wishes to discuss an alliance." Blake leaned forward, his knuckles white on the armrests. "Discuss? You left us to die." Vex'lor's third eyelid flickered. "A miscalculation, your species. Resilience was not accounted for in our projections." On the tactical display, the remnants of Earth's fleet regrouped, a dozen battered ships against the void. Blake studied them, then the pristine Federation armada. "You want our help now that we've proven we can fight." Admiral Krell's hulking Vorak form shouldered into view. "The swarm's main force will reach Zenthar Prime in 3 cycles. Your weapons are the only ones that..." Blake cut him off with a raised hand. He turned to Hayes. "Patch me through to Earth Command." The screen split. President Adisa's weary face appeared. "Captain, good work out there." "Thank you, ma'am. We've got Federation friends asking for favors." Blake kept his voice flat. "Thought you should hear their pitch." Vex'lor straightened. Earth would be granted full membership in the Galactic Federation. Military support. Technology transfers. Adisa's smile didn't reach her eyes. "After you voted to let us burn." Krell's claws flexed. "We underestimated you. A mistake we will not repeat." Silence stretched. Blake watched the debris drift past the view screen. Swarm husks, human wreckage, all mingled together. He thought of the dead, the ones who hadn't lived to see this moment. Adisa spoke first. "Terms are non-negotiable. Earth leads the combined fleet, full tactical autonomy, and we want access to the Elder Archives." Vex'lor's frills twitched. "That knowledge is forbidden, or we let the swarm chew through your core worlds first," Blake said. "Your choice." The alien leaders exchanged glances. A minute passed. Then Vex'lor dipped his head. "Agreed." The channel closed. The bridge crew erupted in cheers. All but Blake. He stared at the star chart updating in real time. The swarm's tendrils stretched across half the galaxy. Hayes touched his arm. "We just won." Blake exhaled. "No, we just got their attention." He tapped the comm. "All ships, this is the Defiance. Rendezvous at Mars for repairs and resupply. Then we take the fight to them." As the crew scrambled to obey, Jake lingered. "Captain, you really think we can win this?" Blake studied the young pilot, the fear and hope warring in his eyes, the same look he'd seen in the mirror 30 years ago, during the first colony wars. "Doesn't matter what I think," Blake said. He turned to the view screen, where Earth hung blue and fragile against the black. "We don't get to lose." The Defiance's engines flared to life, carving a path through the wreckage behind her. The Federation fleet fell into formation, not as saviors, but as followers. For the first time in history, humanity led the charge.